Hey everybody, Tyler Edlin here. We're about to start another long critique session. The first main part is going to be our main chosen 10. Following that will be the details for the next challenge for next month. And after that will be my quick feedback on everybody that wasn't chosen. There was a staggering 40. The theme was Haunted Train Yard. Now, before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to my supporter, Michael London, over on ArtStation here. He's one of my patrons. His work is a fun, illustrative look and style to it. He's a hobbyist, but he's very creative. Check him out on ArtStation and follow him to see his work progress. Also, I'd like to mention I just released this week the third part of my Art of Designing a Picture series. It's now available, as well as 50 other lessons to my patrons, anything that starts at the $7 tier. So check it out. I cover a lot of the problems that we're going to go over today. We're going to start this next critique session. I've been lucky enough to be joined by Adam and Jess, the extremely talented artists and illustrators, to help me critique 10 of our chosen submissions this month. The theme was Haunted Train Yard.
Yes, very cool theme.
And it was
really, really hard to pick 10. There were a lot of
those. How many submissions were there
40.
altogether?
There were 40,
Woo!
and remember,
Damn.
even if we didn't pick yours here, that doesn't mean we didn't like it.
Yeah,
it took a while to get it down to 10.
About 25 minutes. All right, we're going to go with Toner stuff up first. So we liked this one. I think what we liked is the
look at this.
Strong sense of character, great atmosphere, solid enough colors.
Yeah. Really nicely done.
This one kept catching my eye. Even when I saw it small, this was one that just kept standing out to me. The composition is really nice. And the use of color, like the muted magentas on the jacket with the sunrise or sunset in the background is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I think the thing that's standing out to me is just an unfinished quality, especially to the areas of interest, like the figure in the foreground, the child. Like just to bring some of that into a little more focus and kind of rendering.
Because you can see a lot of ghosting on the edges, like in regards to like just not having a very clean, defined edges in parts of that as well. I agree. And you see like that in here. It just gets very muddy, very quick for a typical illustration. And then the hands. This one, it could be like she looks like she's holding a gun or something. Need a lot of polish up in there. See a lot in the legs, just sculpt and refine those shapes.
And it's like there's such a nice loose brushy quality, but there's a few areas like you want to have a few areas that just come into like a little more detail, a little more information. So like the hands, instead of them just being like these flat shapes, you could have like a finger or like a thumb. Kind of coming out, giving a little more gesture to the hands, and those little details will kind of tell you, like, this is the moment, this is the area that you're really here for.
I'll tell you something, just to jump in, I think that one of the things that makes this piece stand out against a lot of other pieces we've seen over years and stuff is how much development you put into the character's fashion design. Very often we kind of get, most of the pieces you'll see have a very kind of generic human form to them, with a t-shirt, but I like the attention put towards this person personalizing their appearance, which really it humanizes them a lot, which I really like.
Right,
really
it makes them feel like a character, like a believable character.
Yeah, instead of just a symbol for a person.
I can imagine what kind of music she listens to, that kind of idea. It's really cute.
I'd bring in a lot more, well, I'm not going to say a lot more, but there's a range of color and clarity. You could bring into a lot of the foliage. It does, kind of come off as very messy, particularly down here with the train rail. A lot of that you can definitely clarify. See, like even in here, I think it's an art in itself to pull off loose or expressive brushwork and have it not look unfinished. But for me, this definitely is on the side of the line, where it doesn't look finished. And I think it's worth finishing. I definitely think it's worth.
Yeah.
You know what takes away from this? One of the things I feel takes away from this, what takes away from what's otherwise really beautifully done is, look for instance at the electrical wires with little kind of flimsy second thoughts type of stuff dangling off of it. you can really see those as kind of like meh brushstrokes. And you feel that artistically. Take a little bit more time to design out those little things. It takes 2 seconds, but those little sloppy strokes actually do have a negative impact on how people receive your piece. So just don't leave no stone unturned as far as that goes.
It's about delivering on a consistent level, right? A consistent quality, consistent level of finish that speaks for like the whole piece.
Yeah.
So see, like for example, it doesn't look like you even got over to here at all. This is something to fix. The clarity in the brushwork, in the foliage, right? That's something to fix, something to adjust. Because you have, compositionally, we're not changing or I wouldn't suggest changing anything. But getting the overall clarity of the brushwork and like, this just means, take it from Jess who does loads of grass, loads of bark. She'll get in there like this and she'll put 10 hours making this like the most beautiful area, right? Possible, but she has that level of care to each and every parts of and you need to take it to that level too.
You can you put in the time and the attention and still have it read as brushy or loose or impressionistic, but even sometimes impressionistic, to pull off impressionistic approaches, it takes just as long as to highly render it, because each mark is intentional. Each mark, like I've seen people who paint in a very loose brushy way digitally, they'll make a mark and then they'll delete it, and then they'll make that same mark and then they'll delete it, and they'll until that mark that they make just sings and it says what they want it to say. So sometimes people mistake loose and brushy for fast, and they're not saying.
I'd add a couple more figures while we're on that note. Just like I just having them kind of maybe expand. I don't know, like and rather than limiting them to one spot.
Yeah.
That's something I do.
Impressive, yeah.
I don't know if I would add them that many going out across to the side. I had thought maybe just one breaking the top of the canvas, like maybe just seeing the impressions of some feet, so you get kind of like a C-curve to the figure.
Yeah. Yeah, a little reflection in those things too. Yeah. Having one right up in front of her. Or but wouldn't that break the idea that she doesn't see them? She's concentrating on balancing herself and doesn't see those.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have it close. I would have it like far away, like the same distance as those ones.
Yeah.
Just like higher up, so we're just seeing maybe the feet or something, just so it breaks the top of the canvas and creates a visual flow leading into her.
Yeah.
But like up above like the main one. Slightly offset.
Yeah, I'd do something too with like those like eyes or some of that that energy, coming out, like just designing them. Like I like the simplicity of them, but I'd still find a way, even if it's subtle, just to do a little bit more with either the color or some of like what they can utilize.
Yeah.
But
give it a little Kojima.
I think another moment that's kind of lost in this painting is those streetlights. Because when you're looking at her and then you look at the ghost, you have these lights in between. And so there's part of me that just wants to see a little bit of a glow there, a little bit of an atmosphere.
I was just getting to that, actually.
And one thing this picture is lacking in a way is like pop. A lot of it is very like mid to low key. And there's not a lot of like just notes, and you don't want to go crazy with it, but there's not a lot of high key notes.
Yeah.
And so finding an excuse for just a few of them will put everything else into context.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was doing with the I'm doing very, very quickly, but like with, again, turning the lights on, having those lights, right, kind of affect, the train tracks, and again, I'm doing this very, very rough, but and then
it definitely helps a lot though.
And it kind of adds to the haunted feeling of it too, because it's like if this is abandoned and like what's giving these power, it kind of like ties it all together too. You just got to take the time to actually do this part nicely, but it also kind of starts to draw the figure up, the eye too there as well, which is nice.
Yeah,
but great submission.
Yeah, really. Very cool, man. Very cool.
Let's do Ari's next.
This is a very strong piece.
Yeah.
Very, not something you see every day here. I think that's one of the things that what we felt drawn to is just you're tapping into a story that's a little bit more jarring, a little bit heavier, but you pulled it off really nicely, I feel.
And I like this one focuses on a story and characters. Like there's a narrative to this one other than just the setting and the scene, which always appeals to me.
Yeah. I think composition too, it's actually smart. Usually what you'd want to do is if you have him facing left, you would move him over to the right of the canvas. But I think what really works about this in the context of this is that you don't see it coming, and you can feel that train's actually a lot closer, the imminent danger. I also like the fact that you have this female figure trying to pull him off the tracks, and you can guess, you can start to use your imagination to think who this person is. Is it just a wandering ghost trying to save him, or is this the reason? Is she the reason he's trying to take his life type of idea? There's a lot of it's a very emotional piece. I really like that. What do you think in terms of maybe giving it a little bit of oomph visually?
Needs color.
Yeah,
it looks like a hack job for like just a black and white painting, and then you slap the little color on
kind
it.
of an overlay, yeah.
And doing these quick overlays that I'm, inferring here is not the way to that I would approach it, but I'm just trying to like slap in a little bit of color because it's just like part of the world is vivid, like the background, some of the shadows, but then like here, the most important area, it's almost devoid, right, of a lot of that. And I'm like, let's just need something.
And like you could do a lot with color to help tell the story, and sell the narrative, the emotions with the color. So think about ways that you can use the color dramatically to help with the storytelling rather than be an afterthought to the storytelling. And one thing that's really throwing me off about this piece is the composition. We have two figures in the very center of the canvas, and then we don't have much that's breaking the canvas other than the tracks and then the fall apart train in the back. So everything feels like it's kind of floating. It doesn't feel like it's part of a believable world that extends beyond this canvas.
Yeah.
So you want to find ways to break up the edges of the painting. Obviously, I think the bottom is one of the easiest areas to have something breaking into the canvas, guiding the eye towards them. Think of visual flow, like you want to have shapes that lead the eye towards them and around them. And then, shapes that come into the canvas and then out of the canvas and then lead your eye back into the canvas.
Ooh, Jess, you're on fire today.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
I'm completely on board.
No, that's the compliment. See, like I'd bring a lot of that stuff in the background closer. Bring us into these characters, and then exactly like you said, use these train lines, use the lines on the power, like they're reaching out. Some are coming in. But it felt like there's a bunch of disconnected pieces.
Yeah, you know what? In reference to what both of you are saying and doing right now is that the eye, we have this strong leading line leading our eye all the way to the back of the canvas, but with the tracks essentially. We need something to obstruct that. Have like a lamppost or something. Yeah,
like over here.
That. Yeah,
or
have something in the foreground blocking that, so it gives us a bit of a visual obstruction there.
Even that like gate thing that you have that's like underneath the tracks, you could resize and reshape it so it breaks over the tracks. The round part comes up and cuts in front of the track so it stops the eye.
Cause see, like the corner of that, you'd get a nice cast shadow right from the train. You'd get a little bit of that light right catching right the edge of the door. There's like so many nice little ways you can play up, the value pattern. In the compositional structure of this, and technically this is all supposed to get in this edit, right? Cuts there, so then you could use part of the gate, like I said, to just make it a little less linear of a composition, right? Like having, I don't know, like what's on the side of a train tracks, right? You got like this piece. You could have like the gate even going upward. You could have, I guess it'd be down. That would make sense. But yeah, it's a tough thing to sell, but bring it even closer,
I'd probably put it up.
And this would also infer you'd only actually have a gate here if there's a road, going through. Which the gate actually, in this case, it makes sense to have it in a train yard, but not
his car. Have his car parked.
Yeah, it just doesn't help.
To show he got out of his car.
It's brilliant.
He walked past that railing to show that he he stepped over the railing to do this, essentially, right?
Yeah. Even having like a guardrail here, like a standard metal guardrail.
Maybe a sign that points up, like some sort of sign coming straight up.
And then like you even like again extending it. I still think like we could either zoom in even more, but like you said, I'm having a corner of a car, here even.
Just like filling in the space, populating the space with objects that help guide the eye through the painting
is what it needs. And then of course getting all the characters affected properly with all the right color. Like what does a warm train light look like when it hits that green, for example, and hits the character? So still a ways to go on this one, but it's a nice idea.
There's you could choose a warm light, like a warm yellow light, which would almost be like an inviting, cozy light to the train coming. You could make it eerie, you could make it cool or neon almost, so that it like has a very eerie, haunting feeling that gives tension to the piece. Like think about the color choices and the mood that it's going to set for the story.
All right, we're going to go on.
Really cool.
Doggin, this is looking much better than the earlier version I saw. Well done.
All right.
That's
like, I know that the character's a nice touch. The dog's an even better touch. I like the floating train idea too. I think that's really nice. I would try to find a way to reduce some of these elements in the background down to just silhouettes, though. Like, we don't need to see all these, kind of details that they entail. See, like this, when you take away the color and the structure, it's kind of just gray on gray. So if you can just get that to silhouette on, shape versus shape, less is more, right? You can say more with less in regards to just not even, getting a lot of detail. So see, just like reducing that down, right, and then selecting the inverse, and then, doing that around. Oh, come on. It doesn't. Okay. Right, like just the biggest thing, see, like the clouds get very muddy and unfinished. So if that's the case, like just like don't even go
Here's
there.
another thing too. When it comes like what you're suggesting is that it's kind of like an old abandoned train. There's moss hanging off of it. That moss looks a little bit too contrived. Moss is a fungus that grows up the side of things, right? So you have this like one perfect strand coming right down the middle, and then you look at the rhythm on the right and left of those hanging bits of moss. You notice how the rhythm is very redundant. So you want to randomize that so that it feels a little bit more organic. It doesn't look like somebody's trying to decorate the train with moss type of idea. Randomize those strands a little bit.
Yeah, basically, I think parts of it that are just like overworked, in that regard, like you said, Adam. You just got to simplify a lot of this. And then, just adjust all the moss or, whatever we want to call them. They're just the ivy. They're overworked. And you can reduce, like, even everything back there. Think of back there as a shape. And rather than painting and rendering all those things, just get the silhouette of stuff from a train yard. And or if you want a nice deep pink or purple back. Well, that's very deep, but...
I think that an important narrative piece in this as well is the fact that the dog just pooped himself. So I would scale that up about 400%.
Oh my God.
You just noticed that, didn't you?
I did just notice that. That's amazing.
I was noticing that I'm getting a bit of a back and forth. My eye is hopping between the figure in the foreground and then the guy in the train. And they're kind of like jumping back and forth as opposed to like they're fighting with each other rather than feeling like part of the same painting. So I'm trying to think of a way to choose which one is actually the heart of the piece. And I think it's the guy in the foreground with the lantern and the dog, and the guy in the train is secondary. So I think you need to find a way to diminish the guy in the train a little bit, like whether that's cutting the glow down. I think having it be a bright white, it's the lightest point in the composition. So it's commanding so much attention, and that is competing with the beautifully designed, figure with the lantern on the tracks with the dog. Like you put a lot of work into what is obviously the important element there, which is the character seeing this ghost train, but the ghost train is just taking over the painting. So I wonder about maybe trying to knock back the light in that area a little
Like
bit
up
by
here?
to subdue it. Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
definitely behind him.
You know what
yeah.
else? Too? Try taking that string of that middle green
That's
string of
gotta
lines.
go.
Take that out because I think that's anchoring the piece a little bit too aggressively. Just try it. See how that impacts it.
No, I've been too busy fiddling with these other things, but that's 100%, what I would do.
Yeah.
Like I agree. Like get some. Oh, I'm just trying to like get a little bit of. It could be any color. It just
let that ghost in the train be a second read thing instead of so in your face.
But this also doesn't help all of that. It's just like perfectly down the center and
centered,
it aligns everything awkwardly.
Yeah, that is already looking much better to me.
And then see, like over here, this is a busy cluster of a mess. It's everything about it's overworked or underworked. It does whatever side of the line you want to draw it on. You got to simplify it. You got to clean it up, make it not distracting.
You can even vignette that too.
That's exactly what I'm
reduced
to
shapes. Add a little bit of a vignetting shade in the corner that could help to. When you have clutter in a scene, you can use vignetting to kind of neutralize it. So where I just focuses on the lit area.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. So yeah, if you actually have good silhouettes, like I was not going to get, but like you'll have like train yard signs, posts, and other carts. Like they'll look great back here. It's just all like these smaller little, but they're just simple shapes at this point, right? You don't have to detail anything, and I don't recommend it. But overall, it's a very well done piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this piece is strong. It's just you got to push like where the attention is.
Simon's been to the hangouts. Looking good, Simon. Still gets a little muddy in here, and we can definitely push some of the overall shapes and ideas. See, like in here, you got a nice, good light source. Capitalize on that. See, like you have this great shape that can also back-end silhouette, right, the character, right? Because this character gets, like, entirely lost, right, into there. But you have created, right, the perfect opportunity, right, to get in there with, like, a warmer, kind of version of that color to really kind of show, like, hey, this is where the light and the form are hitting, just like you did here. The same's going to apply there, and it's going to help frame that character way better.
Yeah. This has got, I got to say, man, there's something very, I mean, you're talking to a Dark Souls fan here. This immediately made me think of the Abyss Watchers when you go into the catacombs and stuff like that. And there's something really like almost, it feels very Miyazaki as well. Not as in a Spirited Away Miyazaki kind of vibe to it. It's just a really moody piece to it. But I think what I would do, though, I think that one of the things you've done compositionally is you've kind of shoved it too much at the bottom. I would
definitely
take those characters in that shrine and lift it a little bit more into that rule of thirds. You could take a little bit off the top and stick it on the bottom. Confided, I do love the idea of the shrine under this flipped over train. I think that's really cool. I'm really digging that.
Yeah, see, like I bring a little more of this ambient light too to help frame. I'm trying to see if there's like a cheesy little brush mode that'll just help expedite that based off the existing detail. That's what I'm just tinkering with. But just like a little something, kind of coming in there, and then you can highlight that on the windows, or better yet, even just block those. Keep those windows in those nice dark graphic, right, little shapes, right. That all of this. Right,
broken windows and stuff.
Which I'm doing super quick job, and then we're going to do your recommendation, Adam, because I'm 100% there with you. So, right, if we take all of that, right, just moving it up even like so.
There you go.
And then he zoomed in quite a bit, but I'd still like, there's a lot of literal empty space that is taking away from the intimacy, of that moment.
And even those ghostly figures in the bottom, like I feel like those should be made bigger, like enlarged, brought forward, because they feel like an afterthought, like pushed down in the corner.
He's got a case of being shy. You're staying too far away from everything that we want to get up close about. Let's just get up in there.
And then you get overlap. You get things breaking the bottom of the canvas. You get things overlapping with the train shapes. Which automatically gives it more depth and makes it more interesting and pulls us into the scene.
These guys, like these feet, the ghosts, like this nice sort of ambient aura to them. The same kind of thing we got going on, in there. And then you could even get, I'm not like a guy that goes all the way down to like super deep, dark levels, but there's definitely areas in, that you can definitely even go probably further to make a nice, bold graphic statement, even if it's like we're just nudging those values down like a little bit. It gives the image a pop. There's like an overall muddiness to it, and I still think that should get addressed.
And speaking of muddiness, the area with the altar with all the candles and the light, like look at firelight, look at candlelight, look at how much it glows. There's kind of a flatness to the glow of that space, which would actually be really warm. There'd be a lot of range of saturation and light where all those candles are glowing.
There's a subtlety to that, Jess. Some artists will actually they'll go. Me, I'd go crazy with the light in that altar, but I was actually avoiding that because I'm like, maybe not everyone's gonna like my take on it, but you're actually recommending it more toward my perspective. So
yeah,
let's ride that out.
I generally prefer desaturated images in general. It's just my personal taste. But when you have something like firelight or candlelight, it's going to have an energy or a life to it. That to sell it as candlelight, it needs to have a little bit of a glow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could push. There's a lot of little ways too, like that you can push a lot of the subtlety. Like I guess we should zoom in for this last bit. Right, I'm actually making marks everywhere, which is like I'm making a mess. See, like even like a little bit like that.
Yep. Just a pop, just a little pin.
See, like that. They get particularly candles at the top. Like you can really feel, right, the punch in those lights. And
if you stay in the browns, it'll never feel like fire. It'll never feel like candlelight.
I want that on a shirt. If you stay in the browns. See, like some of these in here, like if these pictures have glass, right, and there's candles, you're gonna see, right, different highlights and glows on them. You'll probably even see, like, if it's really close to some of the metal down here, right, you're gonna see like really nice highlights, that pop on some of, those elements, again, depending on. But since it's the focal area, like why not set dress it, right? And why not doll it up like an extra 10%?
That's another thing about this painting. The setup for it is really nice, but there's no moment, there's no little piece of the painting that says, this is it, this is what you came for. Like, I feel like there needs to be a piece that just comes to life a little more, has a little more detail, has a little more hard edge and rendering.
Yeah, rendering. The rendering police are out. See, like all of these can have these nice, sharp, very crisp shapes. It's just gonna draw. See, like we're distant, we're muddy. Now we're here, we're getting involved, and we're getting invested.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it needs. I mean, and technically too. I mean, while we're still here, it's a very long composition. That there's nothing wrong with that, but it may benefit just to bring us in,
Yep.
But yeah, that's that. Nice job. All right, let's go here, Igor.
It's cool.
Adam, you start us off.
That's a long one.
Is Adam still here? Did he fall asleep?
Did we lose Adam?
All right. I like this. This is cool. This has got a nice mood to it. See, this is the opposite though of what. This has got a little bit more of a, based off the character, it seems like a little bit more of a period piece. But the character also looks too stiff and lacks a little bit of that personality. Something that we really do see in a piece like this. So take like the archetype of that character and see what you can do, of course, to add a little bit of life to it.
Yeah, I feel like the main character is done from like a 3D reference versus a photo of a person. And I mean, get one of your friends, throw on a shirt and vest, and take some photos. See what
Guys?
You're back.
Yes?
He's gone again.
Oh no!
Yeah, sorry, it's extremely windy and it blew out the power. I heard a power line buzz, so there's a good chance I might get cut off again. Sorry about that.
Okay, stay safe.
All right, so here we are.
Adam, what do you have? Adam, what do you have for Igor here?
Make it better.
Oh my god.
Fair
Make
enough.
it less
Fair
bad.
enough.
That's my advice. Next. No, okay, what do I think? It could use a little. I love the moody feel to it. There's a little bit of a hint of a glow in the ghosts themselves. I think it needs a little bit of a color shift because it feels a little bit too monochromatic.
Very.
But something subtle because I like the gloominess of the gray palette. But some little hint.
Yeah.
of it
What
to
if
that.
even like they could, even if they had a little bit of a green tint, which could, contrast the
Yeah, there you go.
it would contrast the fire and the warmth, pretty well. So even select. I want to select around the ghosts actually, so just around them, right? And
I
then
wonder-
even
But some of the oranges, like from the lantern and the sky around them, so the green is kind of contrasting against warmer colors of the environment.
I imagine the lantern would also cast a little bit more of a rim light along the cowboy's the side of his body because it's not really lighting him and he's got a bright light source there. That'll help his silhouette. His face, you can catch it on the face, the brim of the hat, the side of the vest, and stuff like that. Just give it a little bit
Yeah.
of push there.
definitely. What am I doing here? Hard light. Trying to look for a nice way to give them, that little ghostly aura without like actually coloring them in. Right? It's like, see, just like punching that in, like a little bit of green, yellow and green work great to make people or entities, right, really feel uneasy. And see, like having a little bit of that glow around the major forms, even. It doesn't take long for me to go crazy with this, but I know that's my personal take on it. I mean, it's not right. Obviously, it's pushing it a little more to over the top, but I mean, it'll get your viewers there. It'll bring the viewer to it, and just kind of playing with that element, and then of course adding, a subtle bit of that green, in any of these metals and stuff that are right below them, and then like you said, Adam, with that.
And I think I'm looking at the figure and I'm kind of thrown off by the stiffness of him. Like I said, some references of what someone looks like standing like that might be helpful. But I'm also getting a compositional thing where he feels kind of pushed to the bottom of the canvas. And I'm getting kind of like a train, 3 ghosts, a guy. Like there's not enough overlap or immersion. Yeah. That helps a lot.
There you go.
Like,
That's
That
cool.
is what I'm trying to fix, and I don't think there's like inherently like a super easy solution given the setup, but this is what my mind was telling me. It's
that helps already.
there's a stiffness that runs through this that goes beyond the character. It's the placement, like you said, of a lot of things. Just ask yourself, what would Frazetta do?
What would Frazetta do?
Right? Like that. Nothing he did ever looked stiff. It had this life to it. See, like, even taking the train, like, there's not a lot of overlaps, which is, like, I think, even though this is, like, immaculately rendered, it looks fancy as hell, and you got the lighting matching, but it's the placement and the shot design, perhaps it's underselling a lot of this. So even, like, having a massive train, bringing that, just behind or off to the side even, just creating more of those elements, or even just bringing that up all together, and just then what do I need to do? Darken it quite a bit. I'm trying to add more elements to it, but like I said, it's not an easy thing to do.
The other thing too, on a psychological level, when you close the space around them, it creates a little bit of this illusion of claustrophobia, which adds to the tension of a moment. You want to imagine that he doesn't necessarily have an escape route. So if you see big open space, it feels a little bit too. You feel like he could take off in any direction. It kind of takes away from the tension too.
Yeah, and I agree, Adam. And I would take the trains, see, like back here, and I would frame, fill in, like bring these trains, which this is a very terrible looking train that I'm drawing here, right? But like that's what I'd do. I'd bring in the trains, have them be a lot closer, close in this space, have a little bit of that background, exposed. Even taking like everything, beyond essentially here, right? And doing the same thing, upscaling a lot of that to close that range and to close that sense of space. Like that.
Yeah, and it frames them a lot better.
Yeah, look at that. As the expression goes, fill the frame with that which you love. You don't always take a distant third person perspective at the action because then you feel disconnected from it mentally, right? Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
That's
just
definitely,
bringing
yeah,
us into the zone, into the shot.
into the fear zone.
And with all these pieces being larger and closer, it somehow makes them less important. So they're not like all of these highly rendered areas were all kind of competing for
Hmm.
attention. Whereas now the ghosts really feel like the center of attention. Everything else is designed to like push your eye towards them and close the space around them.
Yeah, I'd have like
Rather,
some. I'd play up way more dramatic, like blue ambient lighting, like
Mm.
hitting the forms, the top of the character. You know, dip a lot of that in the shadow. Add the shapes of the character. Give them like a loosely kind of flowing old time, sort of shirt and vest. Right, just push those shapes and the silhouette of them. Essentially.
and again, one of the things Adam had mentioned in the first piece is like how much character was put into that costuming. Like these old
Hmm.
time costumes, like there's so many details you can get into,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many little pieces that could really sell that and make it interesting and one of a kind.
yeah.
Like Cabo.
All right.
So this is one of those ones. Yeah, you put in a load of time, but remember everything, right? As we've been talking about a lot, which is a very common thing. It's about your framing of your subject.
Hmm.
Everything you have that's important is in the bottom third, bottom
Hmm.
tier of this picture. So it for me from a narrative and from a framing perspective, it doesn't make sense to have that all so low and have so much wasted space.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
this image should
Bullseye.
be like
Yeah.
minimally be running like that.
Don't shy away from the rule of thirds. I know it might seem a little bit commonplace, but it's
And
there for a reason. It
yeah,
keeps you
even
keeps you from
cliche.
hugging the borders of your image with important elements, right? There you go. Perfect.
Like a
Two
good
as well. While you're on that note, I would also the girl is the anomaly. She's the one that sticks out. You definitely want to create some
yes.
contrast on her because it's the yellow against the green and the values are blending, so we don't spot her fast enough. Compositionally, she's good, but I think that value and color-wise, she's a little bit too muted
She
against the
blends. She
background.
blends right. It's green on green. It's gray on gray. It's the
Yeah.
same value
But I
on.
think they've done a lot with the lighting in the background that really tells us there's something important back there, where all
Mm.
that light is, where that like hard edge of the train is dark against light, and then we see the ghosts. They even have more contrast, and she kind of just disappears because she's a dark shape in a dark corner,
See, like
and you
right
haven't
because
done
you
much to pull the
check
eye
this
over.
out, Jess. Because do you have this light coming in? So that's already setting
Hmm.
up the viewer so that you can make up a lot of these lighting rules in here. So see, like behind the figure like this, it should. If you have a figure that's important, like in general, right, you want to simplify what's around them so they read.
Yeah.
The figure's going to be a more complex shape. Take the information out from what's behind that character, just simplify it, and in this case I'll be bold enough to run a noise filter on it to even remove some of those details back there. But that means, right, once even staying consistent with your setup, you could take the coat and play off the idea that lighting is hitting
There you go.
Yeah.
part of this character, and that'll really help sell and really help frame. I shouldn't use color
I,
dodge
I was
for everything, but
I was even gonna say is like some of that ground, like going from the light area in the middle towards her, like to run some highlights across the ground that kind of lead the eye towards her, that tell you there's something important over there.
that was my next step. Yep, we're on the same page, right? Because you have that right there, and you can still play off that design, right? By having because like this is an industrial, poorly held together, structure and situation. So you can, I mean, these should look a little more planned. I really randomized that, right? But same thing, right? You could take which that should be a little bit more of a warmer green rather than a cooler one, right? But you could take that and then use this as as a designing framing tool to really help bring, that to the to the
Mm.
character. And it'll look really nice,
It's also breaking up that big dark area too. It's we don't have this big flat plane of darkness now. You're adding a little bit more movement in that area too.
See,
That's just a win-win.
You obscure some of that, you bring, and I'm just using a quick generic grass brush to help break that shape up, but that'll add a lot, to your viewer. And as I was, putting out in my lesson today, with a good composition is going to have a visual hierarchy, right? At most, you could probably have 3 elements. So this is number 1, right? So that's number 1. This is probably number 2, and you have this nicely lit area that just kind of balances and frames the eye, right? Number 3. But once you get, the viewer into the composition, the idea of good composition is going to keep the eye in motion, circling around it, not dead set it on one thing and then you're gone.
Yep.
You know what I think we might need a little bit more too? A bit more of that train on the right side and some more ghosts, because they're a little bit too cramped. They're beautifully rendered. Probably my favorite rendered ghosts by far. But I want more of that. I'm unsatisfied with the lack of numbers of them. Maybe add a bit more real estate to the right side of the page. Sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
Oh no, I was agreeing with you. I was just saying also the way they're all pushed to the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Kind of get lost.
Yeah, it brings them closer to her. Look at that. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Instant quality.
And then you could even bring some of them. See, I know they were kind of in there, but see, keep this just a nice dark shape, so you can have a hint of a few of those ghosts, and they pop out. And this could be so strong. You just gotta, simplify your structure. It needs a little more polish through and through, but it's a really nice idea that just needs a little, maybe a dozen more hours to really.
Yeah.
Come sit.
Feel like you can have that light.
I'm on because we're recording right now, so you have to be
We're
quiet.
live and on air.
You're in class?
Yeah. No, it's not a class. I'm doing a thing
Oh,
with my friends.
you just listening to a video?
What do you think of the painting, Lucas?
I love it.
Pretty awesome, eh? Yeah. Okay. So
You should be drawing. One day you should start drawing Lucas the spider.
That's a very smart idea.
Yeah, Adam, I'm waiting for that.
I'm on it. All right. All right, but we gotta be quiet, okay?
All right, you guys, huge fan of this one. Where are we at?
This one. This is so
really cool. Really, really cool. And the least, quote, colorful of them all, very analogous color scheme, but very well done. Like beautiful graphic read.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's got a good flow to it.
I feel like it's just my eye wants something just a little more. I don't know if it's in the foreground, down towards the bottom, or that main figure right above the light. But I'm feeling like my eye is like it's almost finished, but it's missing some sort of pop or some sort of crunch that lets me know it's there.
I would take some of the green or some of the blue up here and use that to honestly frame and build more lines and shapes and out of the tracks. On the bottom, this is just a flat black shape, and it can do so much more.
Yeah.
Whatever kind of motion you want to have with these and things like that.
Just to build up some noise.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of that. Get a little more there. A little more
I'm
depth.
wondering if you could push the value just ever slightly more, with that main figure in the center above the light, if maybe some of those yellowy lights actually go light.
Which one, here?
No, the one in the center of the canvas, that one, yeah. So if the light on the light beneath her or from her hands and eyes, something there just goes a little further.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe even just even grabbing that color, right, and that shape of the character, and then just pushing internally even the intensity and the color range with that, make it a bit more of an anomaly.
Yeah, something to break the repetition. Or the atmosphere around her becomes more.
Yeah, I don't know but something even if the figure itself is intense like that, bring some of that electric sort of energy. That's.
I think you could do something more subtle, even where it's like the figure stays the same, but the atmosphere around her gets whatever that bluey green color is, just gets slightly more saturated, um, so that she kind of just pops out.
Oh damn! I was gonna erase and pull that back a bit, but I realized I did it all in one layer. So sorry.
Oh no!
We've now got a glowing green ghost. Sorry. Guess I could get it back. No.
She just undo, image undo.
But yeah, that's something. Doing something more with this figure. I think either way we're both, in agreement. With that, my terrible version of coloring that up. And then I do something more with this area, like either create an overlap with that silhouette or light that silhouette up. So see, like both the human figure is a flat black shape that we lose too much of it, and the ghost, I think originally, before I messed that up, was also just another black shape. So I'd either light and have the ghost glow, be the light element, or the figure have some kind of light in or on it to give the figure form there. I think it's taking one too many shortcuts in regards to the graphic shapes, and I want to bring that human element a little bit further. And then, of course, frame it, using some kind of method to help. So even if the train's like a little bit of a lighter shape that is, coming around the character, because it's weird. It's a weird tangent.
Yeah, and I think you could do a lot of just subtle playing with like that monochrome background, just pushing the saturation of the colors around that main ghostly figure.
Mm-hmm.
Even just a little bit, even just a small
shift
in saturation or hue can do a lot to just break up the monotoneness of it.
Really interesting piece, though. So that leaves 3 left. Let's go to Tiberius. So I'll get these freaking guides out of here.
Clear.
So good, good setup. Pretty good composition with all that. Nice photo, nice references.
I like the storytelling.
Yeah.
Like this whole scene, characters.
I still think it's like maybe like a little too much back there. The white is also not working.
Yeah, I think that you're going too white and too black too fast, where you're getting this like the headlights and the atmosphere around them just kind of flatten out because they're so white, and then everything else is kind of just a dark black shape that fades to nothing.
Mm-hmm. Like I'd have this train be bigger too, like just in the background frame. Like these things are huge. I'd have them like framing, drawing right through that main figure too. I'm sorry for interrupting you, by the way.
Oh, you're okay. Yeah, I think that again, I'm getting a feeling with this one of everything being crammed into the image and nothing breaking the boundaries of the image, like the top, bottom of the canvas.
Yeah, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm exactly with you on that. I want to do that with the water tower, and I want to do that with something like that with this train. Or in this sake, just this train feels like it's kind of floating back there, and it just, I don't know, it's not adding anything to the piece, or the set. Just trying to like delicately remove that from the existence here, but
yeah,
that's gonna take a little more work. So even like taking this, oh gosh, I'm fighting all these elements. So even like, if we're gonna bring the front of that train right like that, and then have that
something going off the top of the canvas
kind of go back like that.
Shape.
Yeah, have like there's poles and stuff, like have even something here kind of coming up, even something even going up, right there. This is now at least coming out of the frame.
I think that should go off of the frame too.
Yeah, I agree. See, like that's breaking there, that's breaking that line, and then even technically, just cropping the image out right here would do it fantastic, right? So I guess we could do that, like that, and then if you want to have that water tower, you can have like the silhouette, that water tower, off, see the legs of it, And my computer's trying to keep up. But any other thoughts? What about the rendering? Like the characters are great. They have a sense of character and everything. The rendering on them, that's something you can definitely still go back and work on, over time, particularly as you develop those skills, because they still look a little, a little plain, and like we want to see the materials, like the highlights of the light, affecting, the car, little things like that. That's a nice touch.
That's one of the things I was noticing too, is the kind of like samey materials, like the car. The way that the surface of the car is painted is the same as the surface of the fabric, is the same as the skin. Yep. Everything kind of is painted the same way. It doesn't feel like different materials. So I maybe just doing some studies to paint like the, enamel surface of the car paint, or, the jackets or the leather jackets, and, the skin, like just digging into what makes those materials different, how they react to light differently, the texture of them, will help you know how to push them further and paint them better.
See, like train yards have all these like railings and scaffolding bits all over I'd have more, maybe a little more of that. I don't know exactly where and how much, because I don't want to go crazy with it. But like you said, it needs something breaking, right? Those compositions in the upper area anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, pretty good.
Cool piece.
Adam.
We lost
right.
Adam.
This was Adam's pick. Let's wait so Adam can...
If he comes back for that one.
Yeah. All right. Let's see this one by Type Proton. What a name. Yeah, this is cool. This is super creative. It's got a lot of color, which I dig. But it still looks really unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I think the things that's immediately throwing me off is how flat the horizon line is, and the broken perspective of that. Like my eye wants to see like some like receding space or something, and maybe that's part of what makes this image so eerie.
It's kind of like got this little surreal bit of a space here. Like we know, like literally, right? Like in the real world, there you would see a load of stuff, but that's what kind of like makes this, a little bit more of like an otherworldly.
Perhaps it's the figure on the left that's kind of standing on the horizon line that's breaking it for me. Maybe if she was pulled in so that she was more like on the surface rather than on the horizon line itself, that would help sell the flatness of that horizon line for me.
I'd get rid of a little bit of that white, too, back there. See a little less of this color, maybe a little more of a, saturated pink. Let me see. But yeah, then we can talk about that. See, like bringing a little more of that color in over that black sort of orange, and then yes, like literally take this whole bit, and make that interaction happen.
Well, I would also, her standing on the horizon line, I would cut her out and move her down, make her bigger and move her down so it looks like she's overlapping the ground a little more.
Definitely taking that, doing quite the surgery on this, but I love so much about it.
Yeah, see, and that for me is enough to sell this super flat horizon line when she's not standing on the line.
Yeah, get off the line, lady. Get off of it. Oh, see, like there's even a kid, I think I just noticed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got to make that a thing. That's such a missed opportunity. Like I didn't notice there was a kid.
And also, another cool thing that's happening too is when you move her in like that, now the shadows of these ghosts are kind of framing her and wrapping around her, which could be a really interesting shape to play with.
This child should be like his, get him off the out, get her like a little bit. Oh, put the child in the shadow of the dress. Like we should see that child.
Yeah.
But yeah, see, like that'll work for a lot of that. I like the train, but see the train, it's still too obvious. See, like in here you have a quick drawing that you even painted even quicker, and then you dropped in a 3D bit. Here it didn't paint or address any of the 3D, so it still kind of looks like a collage of techniques and ideas rather than something that's uniform, that has a sense of unity with it in regards to the design.
It doesn't feel cohesive yet.
Yeah, you got to tie it all together with good painting, good rendering, because the idea and the conceptual aspects of this are awesome. It's just it needs like a lot more time in the oven. So, like, I'd get, like, if these are red cloaks, make these things fucking red cloaks.
Mm-hmm.
And then show how all the lighting and everything's affecting them. Like, what does, like, a green light look like, when it affects kind of like a red cloak, and find those color transitions, and it's problem solving. And
I'm also having a little bit of trouble with how much attention that glowing structure is bringing to itself versus the characters.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you have a story here. You have this super intimidating ghostly procession with these reapers and this glowing structure, and then a woman and a child standing waiting for them. And that's a cool story, but all of that is getting diminished by just like the attention grabbing of the structure, and the characters in the story are getting lost. So I'm thinking that you need to find ways to diminish the structure or make the structure less important to the composition, and then use the shadows, the light spilling out of the structure and the shadows that are going towards the figure and the child, to really sell that as the moment that the composition is about.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if making the structure larger would help, because it's
I wanted to do that. I was when you said, like, you gotta take it less important, I was just kind of riding what you were thinking, but I was like, again, there's nothing that breaks really the top of the canvas, and I honestly think, given the size of what you could tell with this, it would actually do that.
Yeah.
It would fit that pretty well.
Sometimes making things larger and cutting them off by the edges of the canvas does diminish them, because it says this is part of the setting rather than an important prop to the story. So you can diminish things by making them larger, because contrast is where the attention goes. So if everything in the piece is big and expansive, and then you have this small figure with a child, that is the contrast. That's the thing that your eye is going to go towards.
See, like, I'm trying to get at least most of that back, right? Like that. So that becomes a thing. And then just muting even like a lot of that, like getting it.
Yeah, and then designing those shapes to kind of fit going off of the canvas like that to lead the eye towards her. Yeah, I think that would make a much stronger illustration.
Definitely. Oh, I love it though. And for me, this one's got the most potential. And which is why I think it's also a crime that there's still, like, so far it can go. All right, well, Adam's not here. This was definitely Adam's choice, so let's say something on Adam's behalf.
It's a cool piece. I like this piece.
Hey, I like the ghost, eh? And that's what he said. That's my terrible Canadian.
The first time I saw it, it took me a moment. I was a little thrown off by the jarring transition between, like, where the ghost legs disappear into the graffiti in the background. And so I feel like it needs a little something more to sell this moment. Yeah, like the light hitting to be more meaningful, that actually feels like a spotlight. And then I also think, because so much of this painting is the kind of empty, abstract, dark space where the ghost isn't, to think about your mark making, to think about abstract.
Too much of it's soft and out of focus. Way too much.
If you think of an abstract painting, if you take away the ability to render and show form, all you're left with is color, shape, value. So think about those spaces back there. If you only have color and shape and value to make those spaces interesting, and mark making, the type of marks that you make, how can you make those dark, empty spaces interesting? How can you break them up? How can you design the shape of them? Because while the story is about those ghostly legs in shadow, there's 80% of the painting around that still needs to be interesting.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing. Like, and why is this that out of focus? So much needs to be here. But Adam was going to solve all your problems, but he had to do Adam things.
Well, I noticed there's like a little glimmer of a light maybe breaking behind that, like a yellowy thing. So how do you make that more interesting? How do you make that like light, yellowish light behind the train spilling out?
How do you make the perspective consistent too? Nothing here is. There's a lot of weird bits. Like, I'm not sure where the, I guess the perspective's kind of going like that, and then you have, right, the shape of trees, I assume. And you get part of the train yard. Probably have other, right, other trains back there? I don't know.
I
It needs
guess,
something.
like, in my mind, I would look at those spaces and I would think about, like, if I didn't have the ghostly legs, if I didn't have that moment in the picture, what would make these spaces interesting? What transitions of light and what textures and what shapes would make this an interesting space? And to really try and bring those areas to life instead of just have them be the ghost is not here space.
Yeah, like, there has to be a reason for all that to exist, because otherwise, why not just do, like, this? And,
Yeah.
like, let this just make the statement you need to make. Like, if you're going to have that format of a canvas, you have to take responsibility for it. Like, what's it doing? What's it adding to your message?
Yeah. And if you don't, then what Tyler's doing here, cropping it like this, is actually a stronger painting.
Less is always more. But, yeah, let's wait a second here. So that's everybody. Jess and I are back. We don't know where Adam went. We tried looking. He's
He said
lost
there was
in,
a power problem with the wind.
he's
so
lost in Canada. So we have
No.
two simple little piles here. Jess and I both adored this one, from Toner here.
Yeah.
Jessica said this one's her runner-up. And I honestly love both of these ones here. Probably, I think our tastes start to come out here. I love the color that both of these do, and I love the story, and I love how they hit the theme. This,
And I really loved the mood of the two that I picked. I feel like they both did a really nice job capturing this really eerie moment of selling the hauntedness of this train yard or this space with the figures within it. I thought these were both really well executed.
yeah, and I love the space. I love the ghosts. I love the storytelling. The compositional fixes will really make it pop for me. And the same with this. This just needs lots of love, and labor to bring that storytelling out and colors. But overall, very good job, guys. And now I'll let you guys know what the next challenge is. By the way, Jess, thanks for coming on and helping me out with this. And so, folks, this is the next challenge. We're simply calling it Moving Fortress. I'm not going to get creative with the name on this one. So this is going to be a man-made or creature-based. We can do walking. We can do something boats. We can do something like treads, right? Like something like a tank. Rails, like the train example in the bottom right. That rail can be traditionally rails like that. It can go up and down a mountain. You can decide the verticality and the scope of the rails. They could be hanging or vertically, but no flying. We're gonna rule flying out. So here's some examples, right? We got one that's all man-made walker. We have one on a creature. We have an awesome boat, Oriental Fortress, and we have my good friend Cheng Wei's moving Western Town. So that's the first part. The second part is that it needs to, function-wise, protect and transport massive gems. Think that good old-fashioned fantasy power gem stuff that, can power up a civilization, something like that. That's got to be part of it as well. So again, the difference here is technically the third part is no design drawings like this. You can include that on the side if you want, but the final needs to be a composed illustration or shot. All right. So good luck, everybody. We'll make this due. What's today's date? June 11th. July 15th. All right. Take care. Alright, so now I'm going through to provide just a few tidbits on everybody else's. Now, Julian, I love the composition here. I love a lot of the storytelling going on as well. But it's a little too dark and a little too flat for our taste. The other part that it's still kind of battling as well, a lot of the figure, like you have very aesthetically realistic textures and forms and shapes, but then the character still looks so but behind that it looks rather unpolished as a result, and you're going to want to get a lot of your key elements kind of on that same level of finish and style, style wise. So yeah, that's it on that one. Derp Raven, is this yours? Yeah, right. I don't know, Raven, what's going on here. It just looks too unfinished and chaotic. Like it's just it's all over everywhere. It just needs some kind of structure for us. I know it's like got a guy with a power and he's spinning all these things around, but there's not a single part of it that looks finished. There's like fragments of photo bits. There's a there's a ceiling way up here. Like, how high is this? The way the trains are up there and this is over there. It's just we're battling too many things here. It needs to go back to the drawing board. A visit at Grandma's. This is actually a sweet and very intimate sort of illustration, and overall the composition's nice. The structure of it and the character setting, the interaction between them is great. It's just with a lot of it with the lighting, it feels very, very flat. A lot of the materials are painted exactly the same. Like, there's no difference between skin, between the sweater, between the hair, between the dress, between the wood, between the leaves, and the ghost. It's all just has a very kind of like overly flat for the style it seems like you're trying to go for. So I just keep learning about light and practice the materials. Croc, yours is actually really good as well. It has a lot of great elements, but it's a little too muddy and gray throughout. You want to find some things you can really pop and really utilize that light and that shape to really add a little bit more. So imagine in here, you pop that highlight up a little bit. You add a little bit of the highlights on the metal, so you're strengthening this light overall. You actually add a little bit of green in there, and then you add a cast shadow up here of all these elements with the light, kind of like you did here. But it'll help frame and vignette all of that, just a little bit more. Then perhaps chop off the edge, bring the characters closer together, as we did throughout the many of the critiques this term. Now, Angel, this is cool. Again, we have the setting. It's in a train yard, but none of this is really contributing and adding to what's going on here. So you either got to fill out the space and make it all work and flow together, or just do a vertical crop on it. Watch the tangent of the top of the train. You did yours, Ari. Bad advice. Again, I love the actual composition, but the structure feels really kind of cut and pasty and photo-y, and it needs a lot more, because it looks like you have a black and white image that you just ran the green overlay on, and it doesn't look complete and for what we were personally looking for. Same thing with Bullet here. Again, it's cool that you have some really nice storytelling elements and depth of field, but still, structure-wise, it's kind of a little all over the place with some of that lighting and how that works. Like, the character's just looking out, facing out at the end. It's not showing a connection between the two. So I would go back to the drawing board on this one and recompose and restructuralize it so it keeps the viewer's eye in the composition. Hey, Burger Park. Again, I think this is fine. Overall, you have some really, solid structure, going on, some cool dramatic lighting going over here. But again, it's all I could see is this one shade of blue that's seamed with white or black in it. Again, really monochromatic. For me, it does suffer a lot in the color department and the subtleties you can pull out with this type of lighting. And remember, use volumetric lighting to really filter out needless details and shapes. A lot of this over here, a lot of this is just busy, empty space. You don't want to simplify that and try to express that with just fewer components overall. Cashew, this has got some good structure to it. The perspective, sound, but honestly, you can't tell what's going on here. It's far too rough and far too unpolished to really consider. Hey, Creative Faye. This is carefree. I like it, but I would definitely spend a lot more time Faye, doing a lot of observational training, so you can, really learn lighting, form, and materials, as well as composition. Because remember, he's running right out of the frame. He's right against the frame. Anatomically, he's looking a little like rubber in places. So it's rough, in its places. But keep at it and just go back to the simple exercises and drill those, and of course do loads of observational work. Crunchy Nut. This is funny because I thought this is kind of like Chewbacca. It looks like Chewbacca when I zoom in, and I was kind of questioning a lot of that. This has got haunting moods and atmosphere, but a lot of the brushwork looks muddy and runny, and again, a lot of the characters and stuff is just not clear. It lacks the sharpness, it lacks the directness that we need out of an illustration like this. Cypervis. Now this is one crazy fucking picture. Like, oh my god, we didn't know what to think of it, and I think that's why we all didn't pick it, because like, I'm sitting here again and I'm like, what do I say about this? It's crazy. You got like nuns, you got a train center, you've got tracks, you've got tiled floors with tiles bigger than trains, you got this heaper creeper spook. It's just, it feels kind of like a creative mess of like a bunch of disjointed pieces and ideas, but it's kind of trying to do a lot, but doesn't do any one of them excessively well. This is kind of heading in a nice direction if you can sort out the negative space. This looks like it could be really interesting as well, but like this just, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm gonna leave it at that. Eric, I like the mood, and I like the atmosphere you're going for here. So I think, if you actually chop all this negative space off, add it to this side to bring us into this moment, that'll work a lot more for you. Watch the stampy brushwork here, and definitely continue to work on your rendering. You're flattening out a lot of this with these flat black graphic shapes, and there's a lot you could really do with them. Holt, this is fun. Yeah, I like the vibrancy of this for sure, but it definitely, like I've been saying to many, more attention to the materials, right? Like, metal versus iron, wood and stuff. It definitely needs that attention. But I mean, this is great. This might be a little too hot. Maybe bring that down. Maybe even adding a bit more canvas on the right side. But it's fun. And it's energetic. Sure, yes, I agree. Definitely would continue to work on rendering up those characters so they're nice and clean, and as you develop your style. This is interesting too. I like the aesthetics here. I like the rain. I like the grunge, and I like the vertical comp on it. It just feels very messy and a little unplanned with a lot of that structure. Like, if you're using some of this 3D stuff, you got to really practice on how you're going to paint and bring that all together. If you take the color out, though, it still is running into a lot of value problems in regards to its depth. Like, it feels very, very flat. Jefferson, this is cool. I think we need like a little more trains. I like that you have very clear shapes and silhouettes. I'd still pull a little bit more out of those little simple, like, let's see some telephone, like a little more resemblance of the train graveyards in there for sure, and maybe a little bit more what's going on with this character. So I think it's got a little bit too much of that store brand feel to it, and like, I want to know, let's dig a little deeper next time to really make a visual hook here that'll keep the audience coming back. Goki, this is cool. Again, I love the energy, going on here. Literally, the flow of a lot of that. Again, this doesn't need a lot of value work though. Like, you can see it here. It's very simple, dark on light shapes. This has got a lot kind of going on, and it does feel a little busy overall, and almost like too tall and too narrow for its own good. See, like, this is a bit of a wider format Then you could even downscale the characters a little bit. It just, everything feels excessively cramped. Max, again, this has got a nice, vibe to it, right? It's got some chaoticness going on. It's got some storytelling, which is great. The problem is it still looks too insanely rough. We're not, as long as I have a say, we're not going to probably pick and I this goes to many that I've looked at, up to yours, but we probably will not pick a painting that feels this rough in this stage. It lacks a little bit of that polish. Michael, this is actually great, and I do love the style, the styling, and it's fun and it's playful. But again, it does lack a lot of the value and shape structure that could really benefit this picture. Everything's kind of hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, and then you have like this line here, and then this line here, and then this line. There's a severe lack of overlaps here, and it almost divides the composition into two. So it's kind of awkward in that regard. Again, it's just too unfinished, and it just needs more thought. It needs more rendering. Nethier, it needs a lot more. It's not there yet. PCM19. This is good. I mean, you're getting there. I like the attention to light, the shapes and the forms, but again, a lot of it's just getting forced over to this side here, and they're kind of walking right out of the composition, and that's kind of where my eye goes. It's just going right out. There's no visual hook. There's nothing that's kind of keeping me in this image and engaged in it a bit longer. And this is nice, and this is simple. I definitely can appreciate that. I do think it needs a bit harder shapes in here and quite a bit more rendering. It's a little too soft overall for me, and needs a little bit more of that articulation. Rose Dragon, so you've got texture going on in here. You have painting, you have lighting and kind of space, but you also have line art. The thing with this is it's got a lot that it's doing and a lot that's going on, but it's not really pulling off any of them excessively well. I would commit to a style or a look or feel and kind of go all the way with it. Because see, even here, it's structurally starting to work a bit better because the line art's far less prominent. So I'd figure out visually what aesthetically you're going for, because all your references are painted. They're very realistic and cinematic. Hey, there's the reference from the other person's. I can see that now. But yeah, it's kind of a mix of a hodgepodge. The ghost doesn't feel like it's glowing. It lacks a life. There's too much of a sterileness here. Same with this, RJ. 90% of this painting is just a flat black shape, and it's not enough for me, and apparently it wasn't enough for Adam or Jess either. You got to put some more into there. This is great, Sky. I actually love this one overall, and I thought it was super creative and a fairly good use of all the elements. It's still a little too choppy in some of these places. I would still continue to work to paint and to blend a lot of the photo-y stuff, but overall it's actually quite fun and engaging. Steven, I don't know what's going on here. You got these 3D models that are just dropped in with some drawings, bit of painting and photos in 3D. This is a collage. It's a mess. We're looking for a clearly crafted illustration, with attention to it, a certain unifying look to it. And this is too much of a hodgepodge, and it definitely feels unfocused. This is actually nice. I think we have this as an untitled. Oh, Ed. Hey, Ed. Yeah, you got some great references here. I think maybe this gets a little too blue or saturated for some of this. It doesn't hurt it, but it definitely feels a little distraction. I would try I'd maybe change some of those shapes of those clouds so they're not all going so linearly, and then continue to build up the rendering on it. Overall, a little more attention to some of the lighting and the materials and in here. but it's not bad. It's not bad in any sense. This, again, it's hard to understand the relationship and context of these characters, but yeah, it's tough. It's a little bit of a softer, moodier scene, but there's no direct lighting. But it's also not as atmospheric as a diffuse scene either. So again, it's got bright and sunny type of lighting that you get direct shadows, but it's also got the haziness of indirect lighting, but it's not really pulling off either of those really well. So I'd go in one direction. This is honestly has the makings of a fantastic painting and furthermore illustration, but right now it's got, you need control. There's no edge control, there's no shape control, there's little value control to texture control. There's no control. It feels like the image is getting out of control, which is unfortunate because I do love some aspects of this quite a bit, but it's, you know, if I were to put one word on it, it's just a mess. You got to get it all under control. If for an illustration and for the style that we're looking for, which is just something clear and, you know, something really presentable for a typical you know, property, it just needs that polish. This is honestly great. It's got great color, great structure, but again, it just feels too much like a color rough for, like, you know, like a color sketch. So it feels like it needs that refinement, you know, overall. And like, if you want to leave line art on the character and you cleaned that all up and then just added the nice paint and polish to the environment, it could look like a beautiful still from an animated background.